Wealth is having assets that earn while you sleep.
Mm.
Welcome to this deep dive. That idea, earning while you sleep, it really feels foundational, doesn't it? Kind of hangs over everything we're looking at today. So today we're diving into, well, a really fascinating collection of insights, the Almanack of Naval Ravikant. It's this book that brings together the wisdom of Silicon Valley investor and entrepreneur Naval Ravikant. Yeah, focusing on how to build wealth, how to cultivate judgment, and maybe most importantly, how to find happiness.
Right. And Naval, he's pretty well known for sharing his thoughts on these big topics, through tweets, interviews, talks. This book really pulls a lot of that together. It gives you a kind of framework for thinking about success and fulfillment. So our mission really in this deep dive is to unpack the core ideas from this material.
Pull out the most important bits.
Exactly. Extract those key nuggets and, figure out what they could mean for us.
Right. Getting to the heart of his perspective. So let's just jump right in. There's this foundational distinction he makes, right, between seeking wealth, money, and status.
Yeah.
Why is that line so sharp for him? What's the takeaway there?
Well, it's absolutely critical in his view. Wealth, like that opening quote says, it's about owning assets, stuff that produces income or appreciates in value without you actively working.
Okay.
Think businesses, maybe real estate, intellectual property. It's really about long-term financial freedom, future abundance.
Okay, so owning a piece of the pie, like you said, not just getting paid for a slice of your time.
Precisely. Money, then, is just the medium of exchange. It's how we, trade our time and that wealth. It's necessary, obviously, for transactions, but just piling up cash isn't the end goal.
It's what the money can do.
Yeah, what it buys in terms of wealth or freedom.
And then status. That feels like the one that trips people up a lot.
Oh, definitely. Status is just your rank in the social hierarchy. And fundamentally, he argues it's a zero-sum game, meaning for you to gain status, often someone else kind of has to lose it. And Naval says getting caught up in these status games, climbing the ladder, always looking for validation, it's a huge distraction from actually building wealth.
Right.
Plus, it tends to make people, well, combative and, frankly, unhappy. It's often more about signaling than actual substance.
That makes so much sense. You see it constantly, right? People attacking others online or whatever just to make themselves look better.
Exactly.
So, okay, the focus should be squarely on building wealth, those assets that work for you. But how do you actually do that? He's pretty clear you can't get rich just by, renting out your time.
Yeah, that's a core principle. Trading your hours for dollars, it just has a built-in ceiling. You only have so many hours in the day, right?
Right.
So to build significant wealth, you absolutely need to own equity. You need a share in something, a business, a project that can grow in value beyond your direct labor input, something scalable.
Okay, own something. Got it. And he also talks about getting rich by giving society something it wants but doesn't yet know how to get at scale. How do those pieces connect?
Well, this ties right into identifying those unmet needs. See, if society already had an easy way to get something, well, they wouldn't need a new solution, would they?
Makes sense.
The key is figuring out that new solution, that novel approach, and then this is crucial, finding a way to deliver it to lots and lots of people simultaneously. That's the at-scale part.
Like software or media?
Exactly. You create it once, potentially reach millions instantly.
And doing that, finding those needs, building something at scale,
Mm-hmm.
sounds like it takes patience,
Yeah.
a long view.
Absolutely. He puts a huge emphasis on playing long-term games with long-term people. Compound interest isn't just for money.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he says it applies just as much to your relationships, your reputation, your knowledge. They all compound over time if you nurture them.
So choosing who you work with is critical.
Yeah, hugely. He talks about choosing business partners, collaborators, based on intelligence, energy, and especially integrity. Those are the ingredients for long-term positive sum outcomes. Where everyone wins over time, not just one person.
That intelligence, energy, integrity combo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes you really think about who you associate with. And there's another powerful combination he mentions for just getting things done, learning to both build and sell.
Right. That's a potent mix. If you can actually create something valuable and you can effectively communicate that value, market it, get it to the people who need it, well, you become pretty unstoppable.
You're not dependent.
Exactly. You're not waiting around for someone else to connect your creation to the demand. You can bridge that gap yourself.
Okay, so the foundation is focus on wealth, assets, own equity, create value at scale, play long-term games with high-integrity people, and ideally, learn to build and sell.
Got it.
Now, how do we actually do that? He points to three key things: specific knowledge, accountability, and leverage. How should we think about those?
He sees these as like essential tools or forces. Specific knowledge is your unique edge, something hard to copy. Accountability is taking personal ownership and risk. And leverage, well, leverage is the amplifier. It takes your effort, your judgment, and scales it up massively.
Okay, let's dive into specific knowledge first. It sounds like it's more than just, being an expert in a field. What is it, really? And how do you find yours?
You're right. It's definitely not just book smarts or a skill you get from a certificate. Specific knowledge is often this unique blend of maybe your genetics, your upbringing, your personal responses to things honed over years. And crucially, it feels like play to you, something you're just naturally drawn to, could do for hours without noticing time pass. But to others, it might look like hard work.
So it's not about chasing the latest trend.
Exactly the opposite, actually. It's found by following your genuine, intense curiosity, almost an obsession, really, regardless of what's popular or what society values right now.
Like what felt effortless and fun when you were a kid, maybe.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. What did others struggle with that just came naturally to you? The source mentions examples like maybe you were just really good at sales or understanding people's motivations, or you had a knack for music, or maybe an obsessive personality about some niche topic, sci-fi, games, whatever.
Things you wouldn't normally learn in school.
Right. They can't really be taught in a standard curriculum, but they can be incredibly foundational for building something unique.
And this connects to being authentic, doesn't it?
Completely. One of his most powerful ideas is escape competition through authenticity. If you build or create or market something that is just a true, deep extension of you, then nobody else can really compete.
Because nobody else is you.
Exactly. Think of like Bill Watterson with Calvin and Hobbes. His voice, his art, it was totally unique, inseparable from the strip, impossible to imitate authentically. Or maybe Joe Rogan today, his whole platform is built around his specific interests and style.
That's really powerful. Stop competing by just being more yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Specific knowledge. Lean into your unique, natural, maybe even weird strengths. What about accountability?
Accountability is about taking ownership, putting your name, your reputation on the line for something, a business, a project. It means you are responsible for the outcome, good or bad. You own it.
That sounds risky.
Yeah.
Still feels like there's a big downside.
It absolutely involves risk, and we have this, primal fear of failing in public. It's strong. But here's the key insight. Society actually rewards that willingness to take responsibility,
Yeah.
especially under your own name.
How so?
It rewards you with more responsibility, yes, but also with equity and with leverage. And Naval argues that the actual downside risk in modern society, it's often way less severe than our fears tell us. Yeah, he points out things like bankruptcy laws. They exist to let you clear the slate and start again. And he says, as long as you maintain your integrity, people are often willing to forgive failures. So paradoxically, being willing to fail publicly, taking that accountable risk, it builds your credibility and your power over time.
That definitely reframes risk. Okay,
Yeah.
so you bring your unique specific knowledge, you're willing to be accountable, own the results. Now, how does leverage blow all that up, make it bigger?
Leverage is simply the force multiplier. It takes your judgment, your efforts, and amplifies them. And we are living, he says, in an age of unprecedented, almost infinite leverage.
Infinite.
Well, potentially. One person making one good decision, applying some effort with the right leverage, can now have an impact that might have required thousands of people in the past. He talks about three main types.
Right. Capital, labor, and the new ones, code and media.
Precisely. Capital is money using financial resources to invest, build, hire. Labor is people working for you, the oldest kind of leverage, often the most complex, managing humans, always is.
And code and media, they're different. More disruptive.
Yeah, because they have near zero marginal cost of replication. That's the magic. Code includes software, algorithms, medias, books, podcasts like this one, videos, blogs, social media. Once you create that piece of software, that article, that video,
Yeah.
you can distribute it to millions, potentially billions, at almost no extra cost per person.
Wow.
It's incredibly powerful.
And he makes a big deal about these being permissionless leverage, right? What does that mean?
Crucially, yes. Think about it. To get capital, you usually need permission, right? From investors, from a bank. To leverage labor, you need people to agree to work for you again, permission.
Okay.
But with code and media, generally you just need a computer and internet connection. You don't need anyone's permission to start writing, coding, recording.
Ah, okay.
And this permissionless nature, that's why they are such potent tools for the newly rich, or really anyone looking to scale their impact quickly based on their ideas and judgment, not just, inherited wealth or connections.
So if you can't code,
Then write, record, create media. Use these tools because ultimately leverage amplifies your judgment, your unique insights scaled up.
okay, so you combine your unique specific knowledge, you take accountability, and then you use leverage, especially permissionless code and media, to multiply your impact.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me. With that kind of amplification, he basically says judgment becomes more important than just pure hard work.
He really does. He goes so far as to say that in today's economy, with leverage so available, pure hard work is almost overrated compared to developing excellent judgment.
Now, hold on. Surely you still need to work hard. You can't just sit around having good ideas.
Oh, absolutely. You need intense effort, no doubt. You need it to build that specific knowledge in the first place, to hone your judgment through experience, and to actually build or acquire the leverage itself. That takes work.
Right.
But once you have significant leverage, say a large audience or a successful software product, the quality of your decisions becomes vastly more important than just the sheer number of hours you're putting in day to day.
Because the impact is magnified.
Exactly. One correct strategic decision amplified by leverage could literally be worth years of just, grinding away without clear direction.
So how does he define judgment then? What does it actually mean to have good judgment?
Well, he breaks it down. Wisdom, in his view, is about understanding the long-term consequences of your actions, seeing the second and third order effects. Judgment, then, is applying that wisdom effectively, making good calls, especially when things are uncertain.
And in this age of leverage,
Developing sharp judgment is arguably the single most valuable skill. He points out, CEOs aren't paid millions because they type faster or work more hours than everyone else. They're paid for their judgment calls, their decisions under pressure.
he also emphasizes clear thinking, not just being like conventionally smart. What's the difference?
Yeah, clear thinkers are often better problem solvers than just smart people who maybe have a lot of facts but can't connect them. True clear thinking means understanding something so deeply you can explain it simply, like really simply, maybe even explain it to a child.
The Feynman technique kind of thing.
Exactly like the Feynman technique. It's about mastering the absolute fundamentals, the basic principles in any field, not just layering on complexity. Nail the basics.
And dealing with reality.
Yeah.
That sounds fundamental, but also potentially painful.
Oh, it often is, because seeing reality clearly requires shedding your ego, your desires, your biases, all the filters we naturally use. We often resist seeing things as they truly are because, well, it conflicts with what we wish were true.
Yeah.
He suggests that suffering often happens right at that moment when you can no longer deny reality. Maybe your business is failing despite your hopes. Maybe your relationship isn't working because you ignored the signs. It's painful, yes. But seeing things clearly is the only starting point for making real progress. Your feelings about a situation are often just your brain's estimate, he says, not necessarily the factual reality.
Wow. And counterintuitively, to think clearly, to get that good judgment, he suggests we need empty space, undistracted time.
Yeah, this is a tough one for most of us today, right? Our world is just constant input. But he argues very strongly that you need significant blocks of undistracted time just to think.
Just think.
Yeah. To process information, connect ideas that seem unrelated, let insights actually surface. If your calendar is just back-to-back meetings, emails, notifications, you're always reacting, never reflecting deeply. He even talks about scheduling thinking days.
A whole day.
Or even just blocks of time. The point is, good judgment needs mental space. And sometimes that means deliberately allowing yourself to be, well, bored.
That feels almost revolutionary today. What about making tough decisions? He offers some practical heuristics, right?
Yes, a few principles, especially for the big, life-altering decisions. One is, if you can't decide, the answer is no.
Explain that one.
In a world with almost infinite options for the really big stuff, who to marry, what job to take, where to live, who to partner with in business, if you are genuinely torn, truly on the fence after careful consideration, it's probably not the right fit. The right choice often feels clearer. And definitely don't use a spreadsheet for those huge decisions, he says.
Use your gut, your deep intuition.
Something like that. Refined by wisdom and clear thinking, yes. Not just impulse.
Okay. And the run-uphill idea.
Okay, this one's about when you face two difficult paths. If they seem roughly equal in difficulty overall, he advises choosing the one that involves more pain or effort in the short term.
Boy.
The thinking is the path that feels easier now is often just deferring the real difficulty, pushing the pain down the road, which usually makes it worse later. So, face the necessary struggle up front. Short-term pain for long-term gain.
These principles sound like they really build mental toughness, not just judgment. And where do you learn to apply them? A lot seems to come back to reading and learning, which he calls a superpower.
Absolutely. He considers a genuine love for reading one of the greatest advantages you can cultivate today. He calls this the Age of Alexandria. Remember the ancient library?
Yeah, huge collection of knowledge.
Exactly. Today, knowledge is incredibly abundant thanks to the internet. What's actually scarce is the desire to learn and the ability to really consume and internalize all that information effectively.
So how should we read, according to him? Is there a technique?
His main advice is pretty simple. Read what you love until you love to read. Don't force yourself through things you hate just because you think you should. Don't worry if it's considered junk at first. The goal is to build the habit, the enjoyment.
Make it intrinsically rewarding.
Right. Once you love reading, then you can consciously broaden your horizons. He also suggests rereading the really great books you get more each time. And for nonfiction, he often advises skimming first. Grasp the core argument because honestly, many books have just one or two key ideas padded out. And definitely skip books that feel like they were written just to make a buck with no real insight.
And to make sure you actually learn from what you read, not just passively consume it.
Explain it to someone else. Try to teach it. That act forces you to simplify, to really understand it at a deeper level, connect it to what you already know. It's a super powerful way to solidify learning.
He also really hammers on foundational knowledge, especially math and science.
Yes, particularly arithmetic, probability, and statistics. He sees math as like the language of nature. It's essential for understanding the world accurately, risks, opportunities, whether in business or just life.
So understanding odds and stuff.
Exactly. He also makes an interesting point. For really old, fundamental human problems like how to be happy, basic ethics, staying healthy, maybe the older solutions, the classics in philosophy or science, are still the best. But for newer, more specific problems, you need modern knowledge.
And for cultivating that clear thinking he values so much. Any specific reading habits?
He advises reading the greats, the minds in math, science, philosophy, who really shifted how we understand things. And, maybe controversially, try to filter out the constant noise of contemporary news and social media as much as possible.
Why?
Because it's often reactive, short-term, and designed to provoke emotion rather than thought. He also warns against identifying too strongly with any tribe, political, social, whatever, because that can really cloud your judgment. Prioritize truth, even uncomfortable truth, over just fitting in or getting social approval. These are disciplines, mental exercises.
Okay, wow. So we've covered building wealth, the crucial role of judgment, learning. But the Almanack also talks a lot about happiness. He even says something provocative like, we chase wealth, health, and happiness in that order, but their real importance is reversed.
Yeah, this is where the focus really shifts inwards to the internal game. And he argues really forcefully that happiness isn't something you find out there. It's not a destination.
It's not.
No, it's something you learn, something you choose, something you cultivate as a skill, much like you'd build physical fitness through exercise. Your mind is malleable, he says. You can actively work on your own state of being.
And being present seems absolutely key to that.
Totally central. Happiness, he argues, requires being fully here now. But our minds are constantly pulled away, aren't they? Into the future by desires, cravings, worries. What he calls nexting. Always thinking about what's next, what we want, what might go wrong.
Yeah, the hamster wheel.
Exactly. And the fundamental delusion, according to Naval, is believing that some external thing, an achievement, a possession, a relationship milestone will bring you permanent, lasting happiness. External action is needed, yes, for growth, self-actualization, but true, deep peace, that's internal.
But how do you stop chasing those external goals? Especially if you've been successful at achieving them. That feels like a tough shift.
It is tough, and that's where understanding concepts like hedonic adaptation comes in. Our brains are just wired to get used to new circumstances really quickly, good or bad.
No, the thrill wears off.
Pretty fast, yeah. That new car, that promotion, that big win, the happiness boost is usually temporary. Then you're back to your baseline looking for the next hit. The trick is recognizing this pattern in yourself, knowing when to maybe stop playing a particular external game that you've kind of outgrown and shift your focus inward instead.
He also points to some major roadblocks to happiness, like envy.
He calls envy a killer of happiness. Constantly comparing yourself to others, wishing you had what they have. It's just a guaranteed recipe for feeling miserable.
Yeah, comparison is the thief of joy, they say.
Exactly. And he also talks about shedding the shoulds, those feelings of guilt or obligation that come from outside expectations, social programming, rather than your own genuine values or desires. Those shoulds are a huge source of internal conflict and unhappiness.
This all seems to connect back to his idea of life being fundamentally a single-player game.
Right. I mean, ultimately, you're born alone, you die alone. Your experience, your interpretation of everything that happens, it's yours alone. So getting too caught up in the multiplayer games, the status games, the comparison games, it just pulls you away from your own unique path, your own potential for internal peace and, well, happiness.
What about practical things? Habits, environment. How do they play into cultivating happiness?
They're hugely important. Building positive, stable habits can really impact your baseline mood. He mentions things like, maybe avoiding excessive alcohol, sugar, too much mindless social media things that can create mood swings or anxiety.
Okay.
And your environment is critical. He references the 5 chimps theory, the idea that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Choose your friends wisely.
Very wisely. Choose your environment carefully. He also notes that playing positive-sum games where everyone can win together tends to attract and create positive people. It feeds on itself.
There's also a really powerful concept in there about acceptance.
Yes, this is fundamental. The idea is that for pretty much any situation you don't like, you ultimately have only 3 real options. You can change it, you can accept it, or you can leave it. That's it.
Change it, accept it, or leave it.
Right. And struggling against reality, resisting what is, refusing to accept it when you can't change it or leave it, that's where most of our suffering comes from. Just the simple act of saying, okay, I accept this, can be incredibly freeing.
That connects back to the run uphill thing too, doesn't it? Easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life. Accepting reality can be the hard choice.
Exactly. Avoiding the hard choice of acceptance now just means prolonged misery later.
And meditation. He mentions that as a kind of mental fitness training.
Yeah, he has a great analogy. Meditation is like intermittent fasting for the mind. It's about taking dedicated, undistracted time for self-examination, just observing your thoughts without getting swept away by them.
Especially the negative ones.
Especially the fear-based thoughts, the craving-based thoughts. Just watching them arise and pass. This practice, over time, helps quiet that constant mental chatter. It helps make your mind a tool you can use rather than letting it be this uncontrolled master dictating your feelings.
All of this seems to lead to a really powerful, maybe even stark, conclusion that runs through the whole book. Ultimately, you have to save yourself.
Yeah, that's a core message. It comes up again and again. External help is valuable. Doctors, teachers, mentors, therapists, they can give you guidance, tools, knowledge, but they cannot do the work for you.
Right.
Doctors won't make you healthy if you eat junk and never move. Teachers won't make you smart if you don't put in the effort to read and think. Mentors can't make you rich if you're not willing to build something. Take accountable risks. The ultimate responsibility, it rests with you. For your health, your wealth, your knowledge, your happiness, it's on you.
And that whole journey, that responsibility, it starts with choosing to just be yourself.
Yeah.
Authentically.
Exactly. Listening to your own inner voice, following your genuine interests and values, not just trying to copy others or fit into some mold society expects. Your unique mix experiences, skills, passions means you are uniquely qualified at something. Trying to be someone else. He calls that a fool's errand.
The power of consistent habits comes up again here too, right? Near the end.
It does. Building effective systems, consistent small habits, that's often way more impactful long-term than setting massive, daunting goals. Like his example of a daily light workout. Seems small day to day, but over years, huge health benefits.
Impatience with actions, patience with results.
That's the key phrase. Do the work now. Be impatient with getting started, but be patient waiting for the results to compound. Complex systems, health, wealth, wisdom, relationships, they take time. And act when inspiration strikes. Don't wait around for perfect motivation or permission.
There's also that interesting idea that sometimes starting as an outsider, maybe feeling like a loser initially, can actually be an advantage.
Yeah, it's a provocative thought. Sure. But the idea is if you start out not expecting to easily fit in or be accepted, it can actually free you up. You're less constrained by trying to conform. It forces you to find your own unique path, which can lead to surprising originality and strength down the line.
He also boils down the most crucial skills we should teach kids and maybe remind ourselves to just three things.
Reading, math, and persuasion. Reading, because it cultivates like essential lifelong love of learning. Math, especially the basics like probability and statistics, because it gives you the tools to understand the world rationally, assess risk, make sound decisions.
Yeah, persuasion.
Persuasion, whether written or spoken, because it's essential for navigating the social world, influencing others ethically, getting your ideas across, building things together. He sees those three as the ultimate foundation.
Finally, this idea of freedom. It seems like it evolves in his thinking, doesn't it?
It does. He talks about moving beyond just freedom to, free to do whatever you want, buy whatever you want. That's often the initial goal. But there's a deeper, more meaningful freedom from
Freedom from what?
freedom from knee-jerk reactions, freedom from anger, freedom from the expectations of others, freedom from being controlled by your own undisciplined thoughts or desires.
That sounds like inner peace.
Very much so. And things like living below your means, for example, grant you a practical freedom, freedom from needing a specific job just to pay the bills. But achieving that deeper freedom from, he suggests, hinges on the hardest part, knowing what you actually want in the first place. Figuring that out for yourself because, as he says, there are no adults who have all the answers. You have to chart your own course.
And the things that truly matter most in the end.
He keeps coming back to them. A calm mind, a fit body, and a house full of love. These aren't things money can directly buy. They are things that must be earned. Earned through your own intentional effort, discipline, and conscious choices day after day.
Wow, that's quite a framework for thinking about life, isn't it? We've really covered a lot of ground from that basic, crucial difference between wealth, money, and status, exploring the power of specific knowledge, accountability, leverage, the vital role of judgment and clear thinking, the superpower of reading, and then that whole internal journey towards happiness through presence, acceptance, and conscious choice.
It really does offer a remarkably comprehensive perspective, doesn't it? It tries to integrate that external drive for success with the internal quest for peace and meaning. It's definitely not just about getting rich. It's aimed at living a more thoughtful, fulfilling, and ultimately freer life.
It certainly makes you stop and think.
Yeah.
Reflect on what games you're currently playing in your own life and whether they're actually the ones you want to be playing. We really hope this deep dive into Naval Ravikant's ideas has given you some valuable things to chew on, maybe explore further on your own.
Yeah, maybe consider which of these concepts really resonated with you today. Is there one small action maybe you could take based on one of these principles?
For more discussions and talks like this one, exploring interesting ideas and books, please do join us for future deep dives. We really appreciate you spending this time with us today.